Cheesy the Podcast, presented by Just Cheesy Productions.
Hi there, I'm your host Fondue.
I'm Cheesy.
In this week's episode, we're celebrating National Cheese Doodle Day.
Ooh.
We're going to learn the history of the cheese doodle.
Whoa.
We're talking about the military and cheese powder.
What?
We're going to talk recipes and a new Cheetos font.
Fun.
And of course, no episode would be complete without our very cheesy joke.
I like jokes.
Stay tuned for episode 172, Doodle, on Just Cheesy, the podcast. Wednesday is National Cheese Doodle Day.
Yay.
This is not our first foray into cheese powder and cheese puffs, and even the origin of Yankee Doodle Dandy.
That's right.
Back in Season 2, Episode 19, we talked about it,
Yep.
and there's a link in our show notes if you want to listen to that episode.
But not yet.
Of course not.
Yeah.
So according to nationaltoday.com, Cheese Doodle Day celebrates cheese doodles, and they say in all the forms that they come in.
Ooh.
They recognize doodles,
Ooh.
cheese puffs,
Whoa.
curls, and cheese balls.
So many.
And the history of the cheese doodle is another one of those that's sort of accidental and maybe has a couple of different origin stories.
Whoa.
According to wisesnacks.com, and these are the people that actually make cheese doodles,
Ooh.
they say the discovery was made in 1930.
Whoa.
According to the legend, Maury Yohai of Long Island, New York, was the president of Old London Foods.
Okay.
And Old London Foods made things like Melba Toast and
Oh.
the ice cream cone.
Ooh.
And at the time, they were looking for a salty snack that might be popular.
Yeah, who would?
And they say here at the same time, there were agronomists who were looking for more effective ways to produce cornmeal-based animal feed.
Okay.
And they say here the happy accident
Yeah.
was that they realized that their machines processed cornmeal, which is the key ingredient in cheese doodles, and under high pressure, they got tubular shapes.
Ooh.
And they say they look a little bit like the doodles we see today.
Of course.
According to Wise, here's how they're made.
Okay.
Water and cornmeal are mixed
Sure.
at high temperature.
Yeah.
The doodle base is pushed through a machine
Yeah.
and it cuts out the doodles.
Oh.
The water boils and forms steam.
Okay.
And then when the mixture hits the air, because of the pressure, the steam causes the mixture to puff,
Ooh.
forming what they call a colette or a doodle.
Nice.
That extruded doodle was then baked with cheddar cheese powder and other flavorings to produce the snack.
Yummy.
And according to Wikipedia, the name came to Yohai when he and a couple other employees were sitting around a table sampling alternatives for the cheese flavoring of the new snack.
As it does.
Now, interestingly enough,
Yeah.
there's another person that's credited with the cheese doodle or puff,
Okay.
and this is because there was a patent
Ooh.
applied for in 1939.
Whoa.
According to the news-messenger.com, Clarence J. Schwebke in 1939 submitted that patent.
Ooh.
This was for a machine to make cheese puffs.
Neat.
These cheese puffs were sold by the Adams Corporation in 1946 under the name Corn Curls.
Corn girls.
We've got a link in our show notes to the actual patent for this machine.
So cool.
And if you're like me and you're thinking to yourself, okay, there's corn curls and
Yeah.
cheese doodles,
Yep.
but what about Cheetos?
Yeah.
According to cookvio.com, Charles Elmer Doolin
Oh.
was a Frito-Lay executive, and he developed a new snack made of cornmeal, cheese powder, and spices.
Ooh.
Wikipedia cites this invention as the year 1948,
Okay.
which is when they began national distribution in the United States.
Right.
Charles Elmer Doolin worked for the Frito Company, and they, in their research and development kitchen, developed this snack.
Oh.
But apparently, he did not have the capacity to be able to support a nationwide launch.
Aw.
And he partnered with the potato chip guy, Herman W. Lay, for
Ah.
marketing and distribution. And Cheetos were then introduced nationally in 1948,
Nice.
along with the potato product called Frittatos.
Ooh.
It wasn't until 1961 that Frito and Lay actually merged their two companies.
Oh.
And at the time, they say that Cheetos was one of 4 large snack food brands produced by the company,
Ooh.
which had a yearly revenue of $127 million.
Holy cow.
This is back in 1961.
Wow.
So you've got cheese doodles, corn curls,
Yeah.
and Cheetos.
Yeah.
But apparently everybody and their brother had a curl.
Really?
Utz had a cheese curl. Hers
Okay.
and Planters also
Oh.
had a puff and a curl.
Whoa.
And there was even something by Elmer's.
Like the glue?
Yeah, the same one, the glue people.
Whoa.
Elmer's had Cheewees,
Cheewees.
and they were created in 1933.
Okay.
Cheetos and Cheese Doodles are unfortunately not sponsors.
Nope.
But if they were, their ad would go right here. Have you ever wanted to listen to the web?
Yeah,
Well, Newsly makes that possible.
they do.
They're an all-in-one audio super app for iOS and Android.
Super app.
You can listen to trending articles on the web on topics that you choose and get them read to you in a natural human voice.
What kind of topics?
Sports,
Cheese?
tech, business, science.
Cheese?
I'm sure there's even cheese.
Yay!
They even have an entire section for podcasts.
Are we there?
Of course we are.
Ooh.
It's one of my new favorite podcast apps. They even have digital radio.
Holy cow.
Just go to www.newsly.me to download it free.
Whoa.
Or use the link in the description. If you use the promo code CHEESY, that'll get you 1 month free premium subscription.
Yay, Newsly.
Now, back to the podcast. We wouldn't even have a cheese doodle or a Cheeto without the chi, and that's cheese powder.
Yeah.
And we've commonly found on this program that a lot of the things that shape what we eat has to do with necessity
Sure.
and a lot of times the military.
Yep.
Cheese is popular in a lot of Western diets because it allows for long-term storage of excess milk.
Right.
And the problem comes in when you don't have cool storerooms or caves to store that cheese.
Oh, no.
And the food doesn't fare well in the summer
Ooh.
months or in hot climates.
Oh, no.
Heat obviously impacts it by softening it or liquefying it or creating an oily mess.
Obviously.
According to Wired.com, Walter Gerber and Fritz Stettler, along with James Kraft in 1916, patented a solution for what they called the seasonal sweats,
Ooh.
emulsifying salts.
Oh.
And basically what that did was it allowed the bigger particles to be diffused and suspended in liquid,
Okay.
making a cheese-like product that would withstand high temperature
Oh.
and long-term storage.
Wow.
And according to the article, this meant that the new food could be made and sold very cheaply
Nice.
because it was made with scraps,
Oh.
stuff that was left over from cutting wheels or bricks of cheese.
Ooh, yum.
Melting the ingredients pasteurized them, it inactivated the live bacteria and enzymes,
Nice.
and it contributed to a longer shelf life.
Whoa.
The Army placed its first order during World War I.
Of course.
They bought 25 million quarter-pound tins from Kraft.
What?
There was only one flavor, and it was called white. They say by the time that World War II rolled around, the military was a raving cheeseaholic.
Of course.
In 1944 alone, the Quartermaster Corps bought more than 100 million pounds
Holy
from
cow.
Kraft. We really dive into powdered cheese back in Season 1, Episode 19.
Yep.
There's also a link to that episode in our show notes.
Listen to
This
it.
article goes on to talk about real cheese powder being developed in 1943 by George Sanders, a USDA dairy scientist.
Whoa.
And there was a real push back then to actually dehydrate food.
Yep.
And this cheese dust was getting put on everything.
Yeah.
Sandwiches, sauces for vegetables, potatoes, and pasta.
Wow.
And your current day mac and cheese would be nothing without that powdery goodness.
Nope.
And that got me to thinking, can you buy this yummy powder by itself?
Can you?
Of course you can.
Oh, of course.
According to thekitchen.com, back in 2020, Kraft released a 20.7 ounce container of just cheese powder.
Whoa.
Apparently it was sold at BJ's and Amazon.
Nice.
And it doesn't look like it's available any longer.
Aw.
But never fear, we've got your back.
Yeah.
We found a couple of other places where you can actually buy your very own cheese powder.
Oh, yeah.
Spiceandteamerchants.com for $3.29 has some cheddar cheese powder.
Whoa.
Of course, it's only 1 ounce,
Yeah.
so that's not very much.
No.
King Arthur Flour has a website called shopkingarthurbaking.com.
Okay.
And they also have a cheddar cheese powder. For
Ooh.
$12.95, you can get an 8 ounce container.
Nice.
Of course, Amazon has every version of cheese powder known to man.
Yeah, they
For
do.
around $30, you can get a 2.5 pound bottle of cheese powder.
Whoa.
There's yellow cheddar, white cheddar,
Yeah.
there's popcorn cheddar.
Whoa.
And listen, if you don't want to buy it because you're afraid of preservatives or you just want to try making it yourself, there's a 2-star recipe on thefoodnetwork.com in a DIY powdered cheese.
Whoa.
And all this recipe needs is a 1/2 cup of grated cheddar and a 1/4 teaspoon of cornstarch.
Wow.
And according to the comments, it doesn't work, so try at your own risk.
Okay.
Ula.com talks about a bunch of dishes that you can make with powdered cheese.
Wow.
They talk about cheese bread,
Ooh.
homemade Doritos,
Ooh.
cheesy Bloody Marys.
Whoa.
They have homemade goldfish,
Yum.
cheesy popcorn,
Oh.
Dorito crusted chicken fingers,
Nice.
and some cheesy scrambled eggs. eggs.
Yummy.
And if all this cheesy goodness wasn't enough for you,
Nope.
according to Cheetos.com, they have designed their own font. And it's called the Other Hand font.
What?
They say that 99% of people eat Cheetos with their dominant hand.
Of
And
course.
so Cheeto lovers need to live their life by using their other hand.
Whoa.
And by golly, did that make for some chaotic looking font.
Oh, so bad.
But you can go to their website, you can click on it, and you can actually download this very same font.
I'm ready for a joke, Fondue.
Okay, why don't cheese doodles write good novels?
Ooh, I don't know.
Because they're full of hot air and really cheesy.
Oh,
Did you get it?
that was dorky.
Oh yeah, it was dorky and a little bit cheesy. Thanks for listening to Just Cheesy the Podcast, episode 172, Doodle.
Thank you.
Hey cheese balls, we need your help.
Yeah, we do.
If you listen to us on the regular, make sure to hit the download button wherever you listen.
Hit it.
So that we can make sure to have our newest episode ready for you every week.
And stay cheesy, everybody.